Welcome to the Diamond Hands podcast, where medicine meets momentum and branding becomes a leadership system. I'm Tracey co-founder of Diamond Hands Media. I build aesthetic brands that lead, with a background in employee benefits and business finance, so brand becomes authority and asset value. This is mindset, money, and marketing for founders building brands that run without them. Because brand isn't a logo, it's how you lead.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Diamond Hands podcast. Today I'm joined by Dr. Doris Day. She's a board certified dermatologist, clinical professor at NYU, and one of the most trusted voices in aesthetic medicine, as you guys know. And before she ever picked up a laser or syringe, Dr. Day trained as a journalist and a medical reporter. She learned how to ask better questions and translate complex science into stories that people can actually use and relate to aesthetic medicine. And then she went on to build a top cosmetic dermatology practice on the Upper East Side of New York. Becoming an early doctor in the media and ultimately partnered her practice with a leading aesthetics platform. She's the author of 4 books, Beyond Beautiful, Forget the Facelift, 100 Questions and Answers About Acne. And her latest one, which was released last year, make sure you pick it up, is called Rebooting the Biome. And in all her writing, what I really love is that she weaves together mindset, skin biology, and modern aesthetic treatments into frameworks that people can really live with, not just look at. And so we're going to kind of get into the intersection of business and meaning and self-esteem and, what it really looks like to build and sell a value-driven practice and the frameworks that she'd hand to any of you guys, who want a life in business that, that ages well as your patient's skin. So thank you. Welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me. What a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here. And it's like, it's been such a pleasure. We've seen you at conferences over the years. And it's like this last one I saw you at, Scale. And when you did the Woman in Business panel, I was floored. I was like, wow.
Thank you.
It
Yeah,
was
it's
so cool.
been quite the journey. I feel like I've gone through the school of hard knocks and the stuff. I mean, I honestly tell people all the time when they're starting their practice to reach out
Mhm.
to me because I feel like I had to reinvent the wheel and I don't
Yes.
think that should be how it is. We have to help each other. So I'm always happy to share what I know with colleagues who are starting out. And I
Mhm.
encourage people to start their own business and to be mindful that yes, we're dermatologists, we take care of our patients first, but you go into medicine to basically work for yourself and there is a combination to that. So I try to help them understand the value proposition of being the best doctor you can be, but also managing the side to keep your overhead low so that you don't have pressure of the practice in order to try to make your business side work.
Yeah, and I think that's really huge. And it's like, what I was saying to you and like some of the other panelists, I was like, I do not know any of you guys who are conference organizers. This is goes at you. These business talks should not be an aside. They need to
Yeah.
be main stage early in the day, like
Yeah.
no other sessions going on, because this is the important stuff. Because you can have all the medical knowledge, but if you don't have any of the business stuff, you're cooked.
Yeah. And it's true. I opened my practice and I thought, okay, I'll just hire people and they'll do their job and I'll do mine.
Mhm.
It'll be fine. It just does not work that way.
No, it doesn't. And so, going back into that, I always love to start with the beginning a little bit so we can get
Yes.
into that. Because, you didn't start as a doctor. This is literally a second career or a second framework for you because you started out as a journalist and you studied philosophy. So you're coming into this with a different set of eyes. And so kind of walk us through the decision to leave the journalism sector. Well, you didn't really leave as we see, but
No.
and go into, from that first identity to go all in on medicine. Where is that shift?
Well, I grew up in a family of doctors. So being a doctor was sort of in my blood in many ways. My dad was my OG longevity guru. And I learned from him that being a physician is a calling. It's not really a job. He didn't come home and stop being a doctor. He came home and told us stories about the patients that he saw during the day, the cases he saw, the way that they affected him, and
Mhm.
really the emotional side of it as well. And a lot of what he talked about was about the patients in a very holistic way. I mean, he was an anesthesiologist, but he talked about patients' anxiety around having anesthesia or the cancers that he was treating. He did a lot of GYN oncology. And back then, everything was major surgery. There was no lumpectomy. Everything was radical mastectomy.
Yes.
And it was all these big open procedures. So he had a lot of connection to his patients. And he always taught me that we should all die young at an old age. And then when I became a dermatologist, I added, and we should look beautiful doing it. But he lived that holistic life of understanding medicine, and that medicine was taking care of people in a holistic way. He used to hypnotize his patients before he put them under. And he had this whole approach that combined Eastern and Western medicine in ways that we're only beginning to see today. And he incorporated food and exercise and sleep and intermittent fasting, things that we didn't call anything in those times, but he lived it and practiced it. So I learned a lot of that intrinsically through him. But I had a really great English teacher in high school. And then in college, I became an English major and studied literature and philosophy. And when I graduated, I kind of wasn't sure. I really didn't do much science in college at all. And when I graduated, I couldn't decide what I wanted to do. So I kind of did pre-med as a post-bac. So after college, just to sort of buy time to figure out what I wanted to do. And then I found this program. Actually, the guy I was dating at the time found this program, and I had this gap year in applying to med school that it was the science and environmental reporting program at NYU. It was you had to be a scientist, and they taught you how to be a journalist. So everybody in the program was a scientist, and I kind of had to apply to medical school to get into that program. So I applied thinking, I won't get in and it'll be fine, and I'll just be a journalist. So I was a medical reporter, and that was in the time of HIV. So it was in the mid 80s, 1986, 87. And so I covered a lot of HIV diagnoses that led into AIDS. And a lot of the findings at the time was this condition called Kaposi sarcoma, which was a type of cancer you really saw in older Mediterranean men, but now they were seeing it in young gay men who now had this acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. So I learned a lot about dermatology just through being a journalist.
Wow.
And I could see the effect on appearance and skin and overall health. And then I got into med school. So I went to med school, and it wasn't really till actually med school was really tough. I was a journalist and I was an English major, and I hadn't even taken biochemistry. I only took the basic sciences, and biochemistry wasn't required. So now I go into medical school. I'm 4 years out of any science. Now I'm just doing humanities and reporting. And everyone who's in medical school is a biochemistry major.
Yes, usually.
So I know nothing, and these people are doing review. So I failed my first biochem test, and the professor comes and he puts his arm around me and he goes, "Honey, my experience is that people who don't do well on this test don't do well in med school. You're a pretty girl. You could do something else. You should just drop out now." So I had this moment of like, what am I going to do? I had good MCAT scores from 4 years before. So, there was no reason to think that I wasn't cut out for this. And here I was. It was just overwhelming. I didn't know how to study. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be there. I had broken off a long-term relationship that I was supposed to get married, but then I was like, uh-oh, not this one. And then my sister had died a few years before, and I was like going through the trauma of that, and like doing dissections in anatomy lab was like seeing her all over again. There were so many things going through my mind, and I had to really hit that rock bottom of saying, do I want this or not? And once I started studying, oddly enough, the kidneys and the countercurrent multiplier of like how your kidneys make urine, which is miraculous. Like every time you pee, you should just thank your kidneys, because it is a miracle that we can do this. And the kidneys are a miracle. All our organ systems. I fell in love with it. And then I started to learn how to study. And then I just got it. I just got it. And the more I studied, the easier it was to learn, the more I got into the rhythm. And here I am. So I think you have to work at these things and put the time in. And once you figure it out and you find that thing that you fall in love with, I didn't want to be a nephrologist because I don't love it that much, but I just love the human body in a way that I could see the miracle of it. And the dermatology side was that I could see the value of, I did internal medicine before I did dermatology. And every time a patient would come in and they would have, I don't know, they'd be a smoker, and you would say, well, emphysema, lung cancer, they'd be like, meh, whatever. But then if you said, well, sallow skin and puffy under eyes, or, lines around the mouth, they're like, oh, okay, I'll quit. If
Mm,
you tell someone to eat less salt because of stroke, they'll be like, well, I feel fine. But if you
mhm.
say your under eyes will be less puffy if you eat less salt, like, oh my God, they'll eat less salt. So I realized that the skin connection to health is really powerful. And
Yes.
I, as a dermatologist, can help my patients stay healthier, age better, quit smoking, drop salt,
Mhm.
take their meds, manage their diabetes, because I can show them how they're going to see the difference. And then they're going to
Yes.
feel the difference, and it's so rewarding. So having done internal medicine, working in a research lab, because I didn't even match in derm until my third try, because I only applied
Really?
to the city. Yeah, I already had 2 kids. I was married, and I didn't want to apply across the country because I wanted
Would
to stay
take you
close to
away.
my family, and they couldn't come. So I only applied to the New York programs, which are the most competitive, and I was lucky I matched in my third try. So ended up at Cornell, and I always tell the story because for the longest time, I was ashamed of all of it. I was ashamed at having failed at something. I was ashamed at not matching. And the more I talk to people, the more people are like, that happened to me too. Like you
Mhm.
look at even Dr. Sandra Lee, we just did a panel together, and she's like, she didn't match till I think her second try or third. I don't know. But
Mhm.
like all of us, like people that that you see that are like leading the way and who are really smart,
Mhm.
it didn't come easy to any of us, but it's just how it goes. So I think the trick is that if you want something, go for it. I always tell people that they take someone, they might as well take you. Like they're going to take someone. Why wouldn't
Mhm.
it be you? So keep going for what you want. I'm so happy I persevered. And
Mhm.
the day that I matched, oh my God, it was like, so, it was such a happy day. I called my husband. I was like, I matched.
Oh
This
my
happened. It was amazing.
goodness.
But I don't take a day of it for granted. Even 30
Yes.
years later, I'm still every day I wake up and I'm so grateful, and I get to do this again today,
Yes.
and I leave every day euphoric because I love all of it, and
Yes.
I'm happy to get to do it.
I
So
think
the
that's
hard work
amazing.
and it not coming easy gives you a layer
Mhm.
of appreciation that I don't know that other people have for whom it comes super easy.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's very relatable to like so many people because it's like, you had to deal with so many different hurdles. Not only, like you said, you weren't even in science classes for 4 years, but then you have a professor saying quit. And then you're like, what
Yeah,
the hell am I doing here? And it's like, even when, people are starting businesses, it's like managing fear and other people's opinions. It's
yeah.
like, you really have to know what you want and kind of brush it aside. And how do you kind of keep that mental fortitude as you're kind of going through and have these naysayers?
I think for me, I'm innately an optimist, and I tend to see the brighter side of things. I'm not a quitter. I have this way of setting the bar higher than I can reach and then finding a way to reach it. And
Mhm,
also I have a very supportive husband,
mhm,
and he did so much in raising the kids and supporting me and telling me I could do it. So I think actually my husband, when I met him, I was in med school still,
mhm,
and he was already an established dentist and lecturing around the world and
mhm,
professor at NYU. So he was like a child prodigy and all of that. And I was like being delayed in all of it. So, but he always saw me as being a top dermatologist when I was
mhm.
just a medical student in sweatpants and like, struggling.
Wow.
So I think having somebody who is supportive and who helps you through, and I mean, the times I had to study and he took the kids and did
Mhm.
everything and never once made me feel bad about it is just such a gift. And
Yes.
and I think you learn to dance to each other's rhythm. Like as things went along and I started doing more, he came along with me more in different ways. So we both go back and forth. He still lectures around the world. Sometimes he lectures at my meetings, but we're good that way. We give each other the space and the support.
Mhm,
But I think having people who are behind you who really support you is important. And if they're not supportive, you need to be able to call them out on it and then ask for what you need and not put up with it. So, sometimes I would want to do something and he would say that's not a good idea, but I didn't always listen.
mhm.
And sometimes I was right, sometimes I was wrong, sometimes he was right, sometimes he was wrong. But you can use those resources as filters, but in the end, it's your decision.
Yeah.
So you have to build that level of confidence and be willing to be wrong. Like, okay, so then you shift gears and you do something different. But having a village support you is really, really important.
Yeah, I can't even imagine doing any of that alone. And like as you were speaking and you were speaking about like your father, it made me think of I don't know if you listen or read any Arthur Brooks, but he actually put out something today, and he was like with work and like it sounds you've reached the vocation calling level. So he's like in the bottom you have the necessary evil, then you have duty, you kind of are giving about your community, then you have craft, you start to say I want to be excellent at this, right? And then you have service to others. You're like doing this, I'm actually really helping a lot of people. And then at the end, it's like it's calling. It's like you wake up every single day and you're invigorated to do your work.
Yeah.
And I sense that from you. And I've always sensed that from you. And it's like some people they are jealous of that, right? Like
Yeah.
and how do you kind of deal with that? Because I know like in the aesthetic industry, people are like, oh my goodness, the dermatologists are haters, or dermatologists are like, oh, these med spa owners who are NPs are coming in and taking the space. But I've never gotten that energy from you. So how do you kind of go forward despite those type of naysayers when you're even starting your business?
I just don't pay any attention. I keep doing what I do, and I find that I'm not threatening to anybody. Like, I want everyone to succeed. My line has always been that there's room for everybody at the top.
Yeah.
So if I can help somebody else succeed, and honestly, it comes from watching people not root for me along the way. And many of those people were women. I mean, my not matching in Durham, some of those blocks were women who were on the admissions committees who said not her. So I'm very much of a anybody's girl, but a girl's girl. And like I have checklists for like how I set up the rooms and what we go through. And every meeting I go to, I always say I have these checklists. If you email me, I'll send it to you. You can adapt it for your office. So if I know something that can help somebody else, I'm not worried about it being competition for me. I don't think we have competition. We're all different. Our patients will find us. And I think when you talk about that vocational level, we always aspire to that. I feel like this is my vocation, but it comes with everything under it. You're
Yeah.
still always trying to improve your craft. You're always trying to be of service to others. I go to Bellevue. I work with the residents there. I'll speak with them afterwards. I speak at meetings for CME things. I try to do skin cancer screenings around the city and just do things to help people. I have patients who have Medicare who can't pay, but they've been with me forever, and I just take care of them. So you
Wow.
always have this sense of community that you understand that, yeah, I'm at a level of good fortune, and part of my obligation is to make a difference in ways that go beyond what money can buy.
Mhm.
So, and the craft thing is, as a physician, it's always the practice of medicine.
Yeah.
I study every single day. I read articles. I work on everything that I learn. My dad used to tell me all the time. He would say, "What's in the textbook is what they know now." That's not the whole truth. That's just what they know now. You always have to question it, and you always have to try to make it better. So when I read something, I go, "Okay, this is what we know." And right now there's a lot of argument around retinol
Yeah.
and what it does to the skin. And like some people argue it makes it thinner. Some people say that's just stupid. It makes it thicker. And everybody talks as if they know everything. The reality is when the studies were done on retinol and skin thickness, it was done in what age group and how long did they look over time? Now I've worked on this new molecule called RLX-201, which is a cellular longevity product. And in part of the studies that we did, we looked at what retinoic acid does to the skin. And if you look at older skin, like in its mid 50s, which is perimenopause,
Yeah.
menopause, retinoic acid will make collagen, help those fibroblasts, which are the cells that build collagen, make collagen, but it's hyperstimulating them and it's exhausting them and
Mhm.
pushing them into senescence faster. And at some point, they will be so exhausted, they won't make more collagen and it might make the skin thinner. So I've adapted what I do now. And when once somebody is in their 40s and they're not using the retinoic acid for acne,
Mhm.
I switched to over the counter retinols, which are precursors.
Mhm.
But that's debunking what's known now as like written in the Bible of dermatology that retinol is the best ingredient to thicken the collagen layer of the skin. And anyone who says anything different is blaspheming, but the reality is that science is always asking those questions
Yes.
and it's hard for people to accept that. So that's a conversation and an argument I'm going to start having, and you're going to hear a lot of heads.
Well, I mean, I saw a recent There was a doctor who
Yeah,
she has skincare, but she was like, she's not even a dermatologist. Forget what her specialty
yeah,
is. But she was
yeah,
talking about that, and like people are
yep.
up in arms on
Well, I know.
the
That's
social
what got me
medias
to it.
right now, and I was like, oh,
Yep,
I was like, this is something
I know. It's annoying. She's kind of right, kind of wrong,
new. Yeah,
but the pouncing was really, I mean, do
there was
we
a
need to be
collective
like,
pouncing, a very
yeah, the
collective
collective
pouncing.
pouncing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be walking that line very carefully, but and of course I'm going to be able to prove it.
Yeah.
So once I have all the data that I need, I'll be
Yes.
publishing that and talking about
Ooh.
it because the reality is the reality, right?
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing is that when I see women who are older, now we can do lasers in all skin types, right? So
Mhm.
if you look at somebody who has a darker skin tone, it ages very differently than
Yeah.
someone with a lighter skin tone, but over time the collagen layer does degrade, and
Mhm.
there are devices that can build that. So the question is, those devices that are stimulating collagen in all skin tones, are we exhausting them so much that we don't get the same results? So if you look at someone in their 70s, let's say 60s,
Mhm.
and now I'm in my 60s, so now I go to 70s, who gets a laser resurfacing when they get a facelift or something, they will come back and they'll say, well, I had this whole procedure, but my skin didn't look much better. So I'm
Mhm.
smoother, I'm lifted, I'm tighter from the surgery, but the laser took a long time to heal and my skin really doesn't look better. And that's because they're estrogen depleted and their fibroblasts are exhausted and they're not making as good collagen.
Mhm.
So I think that there is something to this idea that using these very strong products and treatments as you get older isn't so good. But that speaks to the craft part where
Yes.
you can never make an assumption and keep doing the same thing over and over. You
Mhm.
have to make the assumption that what you know today could be wrong tomorrow and
Yes.
stay a little humble.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing too, because something that I've been hearing repeated over and over in the industry is like this concept of the ecosystem, right? And it's
Yeah.
just like, we're thinking about the patient from a very like your father was doing, like, thinking, but now they're talking about it for everybody. Now it's going to become commercialized, right? And it's
Yeah.
just like, but thinking about the patient from a holistic standpoint, because how we eat, how much sun exposure, how much stress we have, all these different things in our life do affect our skin health, as you know. And it's just like, but how many dermatologists are actually saying, let's get a dietitian to look at what you're eating. Let's look at your vitamin levels. Let's look at all these different things so we can kind of find out what deficiencies are actually happening in your body that could be affecting how it shows up in your skin.
Yeah. Well, the first book I wrote was 100 Questions and Answers About
Yes.
Acne, which was in 2002.
Hmm.
So that book, it was everybody gets an antibiotic for acne, or we use a topical antibiotic.
Hmm.
My latest book, Rebooting the Biome, is all about the microbes that live in the skin and how antibiotics knock those out, and how C. acnes, the bacteria that we're trying to eradicate and we blame for causing acne, is one of the most important bacteria in the skin, and you don't want to eradicate it. You
Hmm.
just want to make sure that you have the right strain of C. acnes. So
Yeah.
now I use more probiotics. I look at the gut, I look at diet, I look at all these different things. I've knocked out 99% of antibiotic use in my acne patients, and I'm getting better results that are longer lasting and faster.
Hmm.
So what we knew then and what we know today, and studying this book, my co-author, Dr. Thomas Hitchcock, is a PhD. He has a PhD in genetics,
Yeah.
and he's just so smart. And so we worked on this together, and he helped work on a line called BioJuve that is a natural skin probiotic that helps reset your skin biome. But
Nice.
this taught me to look at the skin differently, that you have a microbiome that's contributing to your skin health and your water balance and how your skin
Hmm.
ages and helps prevent infection. So now there's a study that was done, two studies. One was by Saranya Wiles, who's a doctor, MD, PhD at the Mayo Clinic, one of the
Yeah.
smartest people you could ever meet. So she did one with the carboxylift, the CO2 mask, which
Yeah.
I think is one of the
It's
greatest
great.
things. And she showed that it lowers inflammation in the skin, but
Mm.
also lowers inflammation systemically. Then there
Interesting.
was another study that was done in China where they took two groups of people that were otherwise age match controlled, disease controlled, everything else controlled. They live in the same place, they did all the same things. So one group of people, they had them moisturized twice a day, and the other group didn't. They ate the same foods, they had the same schedules, everything else the same. The people who moisturized twice a day had less cognitive decline because they had less systemic inflammation. And they believe that inflammation
Because of
affects the
the
brain as you get older
Do you think
because
it's
they were
because of the
moisturizing.
massage though? Like even
Nope,
that's not has
nope.
nothing to do with it. The
Just
motion, just the
moisturizing the
moisture.
skin. Yep,
Interesting.
lowered inflammation
Mm-hmm.
because dry skin, especially as you get older, can be inflammatory. And if you
Mm-hmm.
look at people with eczema and psoriasis, areas where their skin is drier, has less water balance,
Mm-hmm.
they have higher issues with dementia later in life as well when it's not controlled. So, and they have more cognitive issues. So, the reality is that your skin biome,
Yeah.
your skin quality, the inflammation in your skin's your largest contiguous
Organ.
organ.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if your skin is not healthy, how do people think that it doesn't affect your other organ systems? If every other organ system can affect the skin, of course your skin health is going to affect every other organ system. And it affects inflammation, that affects your gut, your brain, your joints, your everything else, and your sleep quality. So, and all of those are
Interesting.
connected. So, having healthy skin is not superficial, it's not vain, and it's not frivolous.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really important. And so, I try to study and give people a reason to care
Mm-hmm.
about caring for their skin because it's so easy. You just get out of the shower, put some moisturizer on. We have a
Mm-hmm.
million different kinds now, and
Yes.
they're at the drugstore and they're not expensive and actually it feels really good. So people just need to get into that habit, but understand the value proposition. But
Yeah.
the problem I have more and with social media really is that everybody wants an all or none kind of an answer. So
Mm-hmm.
once somebody comes up with an idea, let's take buccal fat removal, that surgery where
Oh
they take out
yeah,
fat.
out your cheeks, in your cheeks. Yeah.
Yeah. So at first it was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing because now you could have more shaped cheeks. But then you find that, oh my God, no, nobody should do it because now it's going to make you gaunt. And you show people for whom it doesn't look good. The reality is it's good for some people who have overgrown buccal fat pads,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not good for other people who don't and who don't need it. There
Mm-hmm.
isn't an one size fits all.
Yeah.
If you use social media as a source of information that you can then research further, ask questions, and decide with your doctor if it applies to you or not, then that's fine. But people seem to all go like, I remember my kids when they were little playing soccer, when they were like
Mm-hmm.
3 years old.
Mm-hmm.
There was a soccer ball, and then there was like a group of kids around the soccer ball, like wherever the soccer ball was, all the kids were. I feel
That's
like
the
we're
same
kind of that way.
thing.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing, even with
Yeah.
ChatGPT. Like, look at Ryan Serhant. This is completely different, but he
Yeah.
lost a 50 million deal because the seller and the buyer were looking at ChatGPT, and instead of taking his experience for 20
Yeah.
years, they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
he's no better than you," and they blew up the entire thing. And he's like,
Yep. I know.
How many people do that with their
Misty,
skin results? How many people do that with their skin
so
results?
many, or they buy into something because the hype sounds so good and they
Yeah.
all just run to a product and they run to the next one.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
in my practice, I'm not the first adopter of most new technology. Like
mm-hmm,
Elocore came out, which is a microcoring. It's like these needles, and it's such a smart idea. They found that if you take out a little piece of skin, if it's small enough, the skin will heal without leaving a scar. So they
mm-hmm,
created a bunch of little needles that take out little cores of skin that were small enough that it should heal without leaving a scar. It sounds great, but in the real world practice, they had a like 20% complication rate. I think they're on the second version of it now, and it might be better. And there's a technique and a learning curve and all that. But I was super, super excited about it. And I was talking to doctors who had it and who did the research on it. But how much do you hear about it now?
No, you don't hear about
Oh,
that one hardly at
exactly.
all. Yeah.
Right. So in the beginning, it was like the be all end all. And some people like that and they want to be the first to have and say, I'm the first to do this new technique. That's never me. I don't need to be the first of anything. I need to know what could go wrong,
Mhm,
what I would do about it, and does it really work? So I always go for safety first, then show me efficacy, then show
mhm.
me longevity with it. And that's when I'll adopt the technology. But I don't need to have my patients be the guinea pig for your technology and then find out later like, oh well, yeah, no, it really wasn't all that. And some people have longer healing times and they still have marks left behind later. Maybe it was technique, maybe it was a device, I don't know, but I don't know. So
Yeah, you
I
don't.
like to know.
And I think that's I love what you said there. Not having your patients be guinea pigs, and kind of piggybacking on that. It's like so when you started your private practice, you did not know everything. Obviously, at the time, you weren't at the level you are now, right? And so it's like when you started, you were working in the hospital and things, and then you were also saying, "Oh, I'm going to work 2 days a week." So if we can kind of switch gears a little bit. So when you were starting, tell me about how you got your first 10 patients and if that type of technique is something that is still useful today? Because yes, what you're saying, research, don't have your patients be guinea pigs, right?
Yeah,
Don't be the first one to do everything. Take a little time so that you don't get a bad reputation just messing up your patients with all these things that come out. But like when you
yeah.
started, tell me about getting your first 10 patients. How did you actually work with them? And if if that's something that's still useful today?
Absolutely. So I graduated on a Tuesday and opened my practice on a Wednesday
Yeah.
with no patients at all. So I was 2 days a week, but I was full time attending at Bellevue.
Yeah.
So that had some salary, so I could afford to have my own practice. And then you couldn't even get into health plans back then because they were all full.
Mm.
So I had to wait to get into any insurance plans.
Yeah.
And I was renting office space from a colleague who was nice enough to let me have it for the first 3 months at no rent. So I
Aw.
had 3 months of like riding through. It was one of my husband's friends who's a plastic surgeon and very nice. And I did the same for a colleague when he started
Oh,
his
I love
practice
that.
when I had my office. So I paid it forward. But
Mhm.
and then I also worked at the NYU Student Health Center 2 days a week. So I basically worked a lot of different hours. And then
Mhm.
NYU has a thing called the University Physicians Network,
Yeah.
which is a way that helps you get into insurance plans. You pay them, but in return you get better rates with insurance companies because they negotiate it.
Yep.
And they also do a lot of skin cancer screenings all over the city. So
Mhm.
you get paid by the hour to do those screenings. But what I would do is I would go to like the World Trade Center. I had so many patients there, which was so
Mhm.
heartbreaking on 9/11 because I missed so many people from there and it was tragic.
Yeah.
But I would also go to Pfizer and I would go to TIA, CREP, all these different companies, and I would do hours of skin cancer screenings. And then at the end, I would always ask the patients, do you have any questions? Do you have a dermatologist? If they said yes, I'd say go see them. If not, I'd give them my card. So, yep. So I kind of grew that way. And then the NYU Student Health Center, that's in New York. I'm in
Yeah.
New York. So they had family. Most of these people were in New York as well. So when they graduated, they came to me. If they needed something cosmetic, they came to me.
Mhm.
And they also sent their family to me.
Yeah.
So little by little. And then this was 1998. So in 1998, I also built my first website. I learned HTML and I went to register.com, registered. One of my patients at the Student Health Center said, Doc, you cleared my acne. It looks so good. You got to get myclearskin.com because everything is my this, my that. So I did My Clear Skin as my first website,
Yeah.
my first URL. And then I went to addme.com and added myself into all the search engines, created a website that had like 2 pages to it. And then slowly but surely from that website, companies found me because I've never had PR. I still don't have PR,
Mhm. Mhm.
but PR companies found me and Dove hired me to go to Anguilla for 5 days with the senior beauty editors of all the magazines to talk about structure and function of the skin for a
Mhm.
new product that they were launching, which I didn't even talk about.
Yeah.
But that's how I met beauty editors and I started getting into the magazines. And then some producer saw that and had me on the Good Morning America. And then somebody from The View saw that and had me on The View. And so it
Yes.
kind of grew that way. And then producers go from one show to another show. And
Mhm.
I showed up, I spoke in sound bites, I kept it short and tight. I came
Mhm.
prepared with talking points and props and whatever else they
Yes.
needed. And I was reliable. So when they went to their next thing, whether it was the Today Show or
Mhm.
Bethany
Mhm.
or 2020 or whatever, they kept me going with them. So that's how I kind of grew on the TV side. But
Yeah.
I've never pitched to anybody and I don't
Mhm.
sell things. I just talk about what I believe.
Yes.
But
I
that's
know
how
that.
it so
Yeah.
it's kind of all organic. And I think it could still happen today to some extent. But I think it's a little bit harder because one is that a lot of doctors now have PR companies
Mhm.
that do
Mhm.
things for them and pitch them. And now, in a way, it's easier because there's social media. So if you can figure out how to be social on social media, and if you have a consistent voice and you're authentic about it,
Mhm.
then I think that anybody without much money can take their it just takes time and
Mhm.
patience and perseverance.
Mhm.
But I found that on social media, when people come in from finding me on Instagram or TikTok or wherever they find me, will say you're exactly the same in person as you are
Mm.
on your social media. So I think
Mhm.
if you're authentically yourself and you're
Mhm.
I saw this great line once that said, in life, everyone else is taken, just be yourself.
Yes. Yes.
So
I love that.
Yeah. So I think you're just that, and those people will find you who, like,
Mhm.
people who want more than what I do don't come to me anymore because I'm not going to do those things.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
people who get what I'm talking about are excited to come in, and the ice is already broken,
Yeah.
and it just keeps growing. So just post things that you want to see later, that you're proud of, and
Mhm.
that you're comfortable with. I always tell people having the name Doris Day has been so great because growing up, Doris Day was a household name. She was the most famous actress, singer, TV
Yes.
personality.
Yes.
And anybody who met me only wanted to know about her and if I knew who she was and if she was related. I mean, I look like I could be
You're
related.
like, yeah, that's my mom. Just kidding.
Exactly what I would say. That's what I would say. So, and then it came a point where, so I never could be famous because there was always Doris Day. So
Yes.
I never thought about being famous because Doris Day.
Yeah.
Then one day I realized that nobody knows who Doris Day is anymore. So
Mhm.
you can be you could be Kim Kardashian right now, but
Mhm,
I
mhm,
promise you there will be a time when people don't know who she is.
mhm,
So
mhm.
your name is not what your legacy is. Your name is only important to you. Your legacy, what's important is what you do for somebody else. The
Yes.
patient who comes into my office who now looks in the mirror and goes, my God, I look like me. I feel so good about that. Or
Mhm,
you
mhm,
found my cancer, or you helped me with this situation that was really hard for me.
mhm.
All those things, those are the things I tell people all the time. If you put sunscreen on your neck when you're 60, you won't remember me, but your neck will look good and you'll remember me. So you won't
Yes.
remember my name, but you'll remember me. And
Yes.
I actually had somebody who came back and her neck looks so good. And I was like, my God, your neck is pristine. She goes, because of you. I was like, because of me? She goes, yeah, 20 years ago, you told me to put sunscreen on my neck. And I listened. I was like, oh shit, I'm that old.
But look at that. Look at that.
I know.
I
Yeah.
think that's
It's some
amazing.
good.
And with
Yeah.
that too, it's just like, and I think, everyone listening, yes, it was different in the 90s. Yes. If you
Yeah.
got on if you got onto the internet, there was not many doctors doing that in the early
Yeah.
90s,
Yeah.
registering, but now we have AI. We have all these things. So now what we're seeing, it's almost like a move back to let's build authority back in person because people are not as trusting of
Yep.
what they see in the media anymore because we're getting hip to the fact that anyone can contrive anything. People may not have any research back things, and people want even practitioners that are coming into the space. They want easy, fast, quick wins, and
Yeah.
it's like that's not how anything meaningful in life is built. So even with all the PR and all the things that you had that was organic, it still took you time to build your practice.
That's right. There's no Instafame. I tell people there was a time Instagram didn't exist. There will be a time where it doesn't exist.
Yep.
I don't care how many followers, how much engagement you have.
Mhm.
Do the right thing
Yeah.
and be true to yourself and be authentic
Yeah.
because don't do it for a reason. Don't light yourself on fire to give somebody else a show. It's a matter of being true to who you are, doing
Mhm.
the right thing. I will never do something for someone they don't need. I will spend more
Mhm.
time talking somebody out of getting forehead Botox if they don't need it
Mhm.
than doing it when I could have just made the money and do it. But I won't do the wrong thing. So I know most doctors wouldn't either. But the
Mhm.
reality is, if you stick to what you know to be right and true, it'll always work out for you.
Exactly. And then the last thing I want to wrap up with is, principled visibility, because,
Yeah.
what we're seeing too, doctors are getting their booty smacked on Instagram, all these things, whatever. And it's like, okay, so there was another consultant. I should quote him. I'll quote you if you're listening. But anyways, I was gonna say, but he's a plastic surgery consultant. And I loved what he said. He said there's a difference between affinity economy and authority economy. And too many doctors, plastic surgeons, nurse
Yeah.
practitioners, they're optimizing for affinity economy. So yeah, they're getting likes, views, impressions, but they're doing nonsense for it. Whereas
Yeah.
authority economy, it's like, doing that stuff, dancing is not going to get you a board seat. It's not on a major company. It's not going to get you, but authority economy, you might grow slower, but you're talking about things that are meaningful to you. They're research backed, and it's slower, but you get more long term respect. So, how do you kind of use media strategically and ethically and balance affinity economy type of media with authority economy type of media?
Such a great question, and it's tricky. When I went to medical school, only 30% of my class were women, and a
Mhm,
lot of those women didn't practice.
mhm,
And the men didn't really want us there. Everybody ahead of us were men.
mhm,
And so to get anywhere, we really had to work a lot harder. But the reality is we got there, right?
Mhm.
And the reason I bring that up is because you get there by the authority. And I feel like we fought such battles to make this possible for so many women. Now that more than 50% of dermatologists are women,
Yes.
and in the residency programs. And when I see those things, when I see women, especially in my specialty, 'cause that's what I focus on, who are out there wearing almost nothing or doing these things that don't relate to the field, but they sort of try to loosely tie it to it. It's uncomfortable for me, but then again, I'm older, and maybe I'm just older, and this is like what it is like for the younger people. But I mean, I have a daughter and daughter-in-law who are dermatology residents, and they don't do that either. So it's not everybody. I think it's exactly what you said, though. It's understanding the difference between Instafame and saying, I'm going to do these things because I will get attention for doing it. It's getting to a point where you recognize that that is short-lived,
Yeah.
and that the escalation you have to keep that level of attention is unsustainable.
Yeah.
If you go with the authority, like for me, I'm really lucky in that I just don't have maybe I don't have the body for it, I don't know, but I just don't do those things, and I don't have the rhythm for it. Whatever it is, I just don't do those things. But now, like when opportunities come up, I do so much consulting. I help develop a new product
Yeah.
that is, I think, going to be revolutionary in dermatology. That's going to be like the next big thing next to Retin A. And the contributions I have in publications and lecturing, just they make me happy. I think, yes, it's 30 years of work to get there. Maybe there's a faster way and people are smarter and they can do it faster, but that's the path that I hope people choose more often than the one where you kind of put yourself out there. So my balance is, then I do things with family. I have videos with my mom.
Yeah.
I have videos with my husband. Sometimes I'll do some with my daughter too when I can get her to do stuff. She's working really hard at residency.
Yeah.
But I think when you get a little bit personal, there's a way to do it where you get that affinity side where people can see you as a human and get that you're not just a robot giving scientific information, but you don't have to lay yourself out there and not be true to who you are.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, like being true to you, because there's some people that's honestly who they are, and it's like if you meet them, you're
Yeah.
like, whoa, you're a party girl or a party guy, and that's really it. And and staying true to who you are, because I think if we look back at our careers, 10 years, do we want to be, I think the question that everyone has to ask themselves, are you going to be proud of what you put out today? And so my last question, if you could speak directly to the exhausted 3-year practice owner who feels behind, what would you say to them as Doris the philosopher, not just Doris the dermatologist?
I would say it will all work out. Just keep going. It's like a rubber band. In the beginning, the first 3 to 5 years, it's like the slog of you're like pulling back on that rubber band. It's a lot of energy. And then you hit this tipping point and you just take off and you will get there. And then call your peers, call people who are ahead of you, talk to us. We're happy to help you get ahead. You don't have to do this alone, that you can lean on people who are more senior in practice, ask them questions, tell us what weighs you down, and see how we can help, whether it's helping send out the checklist or how to train staff or what our hurdles were, or just hearing that this happened to me too, and I've been through what you're going through, and I got to the other side of it. So don't feel like you're alone. We're all isolated in our offices, but you don't have to be. And people come up to me at meetings sometimes, and I talk to people who are ahead of me and talk to my girlfriends. But I think one thing also is, don't think that there's such a thing as work-life balance. It's all life.
Yeah.
And you have to incorporate all of it as one entity. And you have to compartmentalize as well. And you can't take your things at home and take it out on your family. You have to compartmentalize that way, but it will all work out. Keep going, learn from your mistakes, don't make them again. And then also, when somebody makes a mistake in your office, don't ask why that happened. Ask, how do we prevent it from happening again? And try to do quality control so that when things don't go exactly as planned, you're able to make sure that they don't keep happening, and you can keep growing and getting better that way.
Awesome. I could talk to you for like 3 hours. Oh my God. But Dr. Doris, thank you so much for your time, kind of like sharing some of your story and some of the cool things coming out. And guys, if you haven't gotten it already, this could be a really great thing to have on your shelf. Rebooting the Biome came out last year. If you don't have your copy, this is all the rage right now, looking at your patients holistically. And I think that's a really great. So I'll put everything about Dr. Day in the show notes. I'm sure you're following her already. But thank you so much for your time. Until next time, guys, I'm Leslie Tracey, your host. Take care.
Want more clarity like this? Join the Branded Practice newsletter community. I write about strategy, systems, and brand leadership straight to your inbox. Go to diamondhandsmedia.com to sign up. And if this episode hit, share it with someone still building without a brand. This is the Diamond Hands Podcast. Thanks for listening. Now go lead.